Happy New Year, Packer fans. The Green Bay Packers get some much needed help from not only some individuals on their team, which we will discuss in this video, in a big win over the Minnesota Vikings, but they get some much needed help from around the league. What do I mean by that, guys? Take a second to hit the subscribe button. Let's jump into it. The Green Bay Packers getting some much needed help from the Pittsburgh Steelers in a 30-23 win over the Seattle Seahawks, putting the Green Bay Packers yet again in charge of their own destiny. Green Bay Packers found themselves in that same scenario last season, playing a divisional game versus the Detroit Lions, a game at home which they lose. A dangerous game. I knew a dangerous game going into that game because the Detroit Lions, before the game started, knew they had nothing to play for, which means Dan Campbell was going to call a dangerous game, going for it on fourth and shorts, calling trick plays, all of the above. There was nothing the Detroit Lions wanted more than to knock the Green Bay Packers out of the playoffs, which they did successfully. Now, the Chicago Bears finding themselves in that same boat, that same scenario. Bears looked really good today, calling a good game, putting up a lot of points. They want nothing more than to knock the Green Bay Packers out of the playoffs. So that's going to be a dangerous game this upcoming week. But the Green Bay Packers only find themselves in this scenario because they get a huge win on the road versus the Minnesota Vikings. A must win for the Minnesota Vikings, a must win for the Green Bay Packers. Now the Minnesota Vikings find themselves out of the playoffs. The Packers putting up 33 points of total offense. That's 66 points between last week and this week of offense. That is huge. That's a big number. Let's take a look at some team stats. This is a huge number for the Green Bay Packers. They put up 470 yards of total offense to Minnesota's 211. They put up 293 passing yards, but here's a huge number for the Packers, 177 rushing yards to Minnesota's 67. A game in which I thought Ty Chandler was going to dominate the run game on the Packers defense, but you got to give the hats off to Joe Barry in this defensive call, because he kept putting pressure on quarterback Jaren Hall. A late Christmas gift from the Minnesota Vikings. I said it earlier in the week that the Minnesota Vikings gave the Packers a late Christmas gift by allowing Jaren Hall to start. I'm still floored at this call by the Minnesota Vikings by allowing Jaren Hall to start. Putting a lot of pressure on Jaren Hall's shoulders, a game in which he just clearly wasn't ready for that stage. I really thought they should have went with Nick Mullins, and I think that backfired on them there. I think if they could do it all over again, they would have started Nick Mullins, because when Nick Mullins got in the game, it just looked differently. He went 13 of 22, 113 yards on a touchdown, as opposed to Jaren Hall's 5 of 10 for 67 yards and a pick. But continue to look at the overall team stats. Third down efficiencies for the Green Bay Packers, that was big. 9 of 14. That's huge. As opposed to defensively for the Green Bay Packers, only allowing 30% third down efficiencies for the Minnesota Vikings and 0% on fourth downs, 0 of 2. But you look at sacks, the Green Bay Packers getting 4 sacks, putting a lot of pressure on either quarterback in the game. And then they caused two turnovers. We know that if the Green Bay Packers are, forcing turnovers and putting pressure on the opposing team, they're going to have the best chance to win any game, right? So let's take a look at player stats for the Packers. Jordan Love, 24 of 33 passing, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Jordan Love is certainly making a very good case that the Green Bay Packers should be throwing some money at him and putting their faith and stock in him. He had a couple of missed throws in this game. A couple of them were big, but at the same time, he had a couple of really big throws in this game. Aaron Jones having a huge game, 20 carries for 120 yards, average of 6 yards per carry. He looked super good, and he is super dangerous. But here is when we look at Bo Melton, right? Bo Melton, we talked about him. I think it was yesterday. Bo Melton, how big of a guy this is. Jordan Love seems to like this dude a lot. The Packers getting back Jayden Reed. Man, is it good to see Jayden Reed out there. 6 catches, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns before he gets hurt with that rib injury. I think we'll be able to see him out on the field versus the Chicago Bears. But They were up so big that they didn't even bother bringing him back. I really hope that we don't get any bad news there. But Bo Melton, 6 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Tucker Kraft filling in for Luke Musgrave, filling in those shoes very good because he had a couple of really nice blocks in this game. 6 catches for 48 yards. Romeo Doubs dropped a couple of big catches, but 3 catches, 28 yards. Those were some tough catches anyways. But guys, leave your comments. Let me know what you think. What a way for the Green Bay Packers to rein in or end 2023 and rein in the new year of 2024 by setting themselves up for a playoff wild card. I know some of you guys don't care because it's like, okay, so the Packers make the playoffs. Who cares? I care. You guys should care. The Green Bay Packers, youngest team, could be the youngest team in history to make the playoffs. That is big stuff because that means there is a ton of talent on this team. When you look at the receiving core out there, Jordan Love is throwing to a lot of different targets each week due to injuries or whatever. Aaron Jones out most of the season. Guys, there is a lot to get excited about for this Green Bay Packer team. Leave your comments. Go Pack.